Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are focusing on one football game, but really just a single high-stakes moment in overtime.
And the dizzying strategic decisions that followed. It was incredible.
We are dissecting the final play of the Washington Commanders' 27-26 loss to the Denver Broncos, a game that was decided not by a field goal, but by a failed two-point conversion attempt.
That's right. Our mission today is to take this stack of sources. We've got coach interviews, player quotes, tactical breakdowns, and just pull out the critical knowledge nuggets.
Okay.
We're looking at calculated aggression from the Commanders, and then, critically, the tactical genius the Broncos used during what their head coach called a Kodak situation.
A Kodak situation. I love that. So this is really all about the tension between sticking to a rigid plan and adapting brilliantly under fire.
Exactly.
We've got the perfect setup for drama here. Just to set the scene for you, the Commanders, they clawed their way back, tied the game on the very last play of regulation. They then get the ball in overtime and march 65 yards on 11 plays, and it's capped by this dramatic 3-yard touchdown pass from Marcus Mariota to Terry McLaurin on 4th and 3.
So they had the ball, they had the score, and they had a choice.
And that choice is where everything pivots.
It really is. They could have just kicked the extra point, tied the game at 27, and then, risk giving Denver the ball back for a potentially game-winning score.
But they didn't?
No. Instead, they opted for an immediate high-risk, high-reward approach.
And that decision to forget the extra point and go for 2 right away, that wasn't some spontaneous thing, was it? It wasn't a reaction to the drive.
Not at all. And this is the crucial strategic insight from the Commanders' side of things. Coach Dan Quinn stated really clearly that the decision was pre-planned before overtime even began.
Wow.
His conviction was absolute. He said, and I'm quoting here, going into the overtime spot, I thought that would be the way we would go. That was the strategy all along. There was no hesitation.
That level of pre-commitment is just fascinating. I mean, when you look at the risk-reward of an overtime game, why make that call before you even see how your drive plays out?
Yeah.
Does that show confidence or does it show, I don't know, a lack of flexibility?
I think it speaks volumes about the culture he's building there. It's a statement of intent. It's saying, we're here to win, not to tie, and we will not hesitate when that critical moment arrives.
It removes the ambiguity.
It removes all the ambiguity of that sideline discussion under pressure, and the players, they immediately internalized it.
Yeah, Marcus Mariota, the quarterback, he backed this up completely. Said he loved the call, loved the confidence the coach showed in them.
Right.
He even gave it a nickname called the conviction cue and said there was no doubt in our minds across the board.
So you have a sound strategy, an aggressive mindset, and universal buy-in from the players. Quinn even defended the specific play they called. He noted it was designed to beat man-to-man coverage and that Jeremy McNichols was open for the score.
Which raises the crucial question for you listening.
Yeah. If the strategy was locked in, the play was rehearsed, and the receiver was open, why didn't it work? Why didn't they convert?
And that's the friction point. It tells us that the success of the Commanders' conviction wasn't ultimately decided by their own preparedness, but by the opposition's ability to adapt in a tiny, compressed time frame. The Broncos had the final say.
Which is where we get into this tactical brilliance you mentioned. Yeah. The Kodak situation.
Precisely.
Okay, so Washington lines up for the 2-point conversion. Yeah. The whole game, everything rests on this one snap. And what happens?
Denver immediately calls a timeout.
And this is the Kodak situation.
This is it. Coach Sean Payton called the timeout a Kodak situation.
Yeah.
It's his analogy that means the game is going to end on the next play no matter what happens. So you use that timeout to regroup, collect your thoughts.
You're taking a snapshot of the moment.
Exactly. To make sure your final tactical decision is the right one. So they're not just, catching their breath. They are actively changing the fundamental defensive strategy for the most important play of the game. What was their main concern in that 60-second huddle?
The primary concern, according to all our sources, was the threat of a designed quarterback run.
Ah, okay.
These short yardage conversions, they often rely on misdirection, QB mobility. So defensive coordinator Vance Joseph recognized that just playing a standard goal line defense wasn't going to be enough.
So what was the adjustment they made?
They switched their entire pressure package. Joseph went from one pressure look to another with a very specific and highly aggressive intent.
Which was?
To manufacture a free rusher, to create a situation where the offense's protection scheme would inevitably miss a guy.
So they weren't just running a strong blitz. They were specifically trying to break the communication of the offensive line.
Yes.
That's a huge risk. I mean, it's high risk, high reward, because if you fail to get that free rusher, you're leaving your secondary totally exposed.
Completely exposed. And the alignment showed that risk. They stacked all 11 Broncos defenders tightly, all within 4 yards of line of scrimmage. It screams zero blitz.
Which means zero deep safeties.
No help deep. Everyone is either rushing or in man-to-man coverage. It's all in.
Okay, let's track the execution. The sources, they identify the intended free rusher as Nik Bonitto. How was he set up to be the guy left unblocked?
Well, Bonitto was strategically lined up way outside the left shoulder of the Commander's left tackle, Laramie Tunsil. On a normal six-man protection, the line accounts for the most obvious threats.
Right, the guy's right in front of them.
Exactly. But by switching the entire package in the timeout, Denver forced Tunsil to choose between the rusher directly in front of him and Bonitto, who was coming from this aggressive, wide outside angle.
So the protection scheme was just overloaded. They're trying to sort out 6 different guys screaming toward Mariota.
The system broke down.
And Bonitto was left unblocked. The defensive tweak worked instantly.
It was like geometric precision. Bonitto closed on Mariota so fast, Mariota had to step back to buy just a little depth against that zero blitz, but Bonitto leaped as the pass was released. And here is the unforgettable detail.
What's that?
He batted the ball away with his right hand.
Okay.
A hand that had been in a cast since week 3.
Wait, the cast on it? You're kidding.
A casted hand, making the game-winning play in an overtime thriller. It's unbelievable. And we have confirmation that the offense was this close to beating them anyway. Bo Nix, watching from the bench, said, "I think the guy might have been open, but Nick did a great job."
So you can see that tension playing out. It sounds like Terry McLaurin had actually broken free, got the separation they needed for the win.
He did, but the defensive calculation, that free rusher, was just faster than the receiver's timing.
Mariota's perspective really drives that home. He said the defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph, had been mixing up zero blitzes all day, so he knew. He knew he had to gain some depth to give his receiver a chance.
He was acknowledging the extreme pressure, the lack of time. He was trying to extend the play just enough to counter the risk of that blitz, but as he said, Bonitto made a play on it.
And what did the free rusher himself have to say?
Bonitto credited the timeout. He said it, quote, kind of helped calm us down a little bit, be able to get into what we were able to get into and get a stop. His whole objective was simple. He knew Mariota was buying time, so he was just trying to make it hard for him to throw the ball.
It's amazing. What stands out to me is how that strategic pause, that Kodak situation, it wasn't just physical rest. It provided the psychological reset they needed for a high-risk technical adjustment.
Absolutely. They didn't just rely on adrenaline. They relied on targeted, high-level tactical changes. They planned for a free rusher, they created the free rusher, and the rusher finished the play.
And to truly appreciate the intensity of this moment, we have to recognize the sheer emotional whiplash this Broncos team had gone through just minutes before this.
Well, we absolutely have to. Let's rewind the clock just 9 snaps earlier. The game should have been over. On a 4th and 6 play, a pass gets deflected, and safety Brandon Jones intercepts the ball. For all intents and purposes, Denver had won the game.
And Coach Payton was so convinced it was over that he made a mistake he said had never happened before.
He pulled off his headset?
He pulled off the headset he uses to talk to his quarterback, Bo Nix. He literally took the helmet radio off too soon.
Can you imagine that psychological shift? The elation of victory, the mistake of celebrating early, and then that crushing reality when a flag flies.
And the interception is wiped out by a pass interference penalty.
Yeah, on safety Talanoa Hufanga. So they had won, then they had lost, and now they had to defend a successful overtime drive all over again.
That sequence, the mental gymnastics required, it just sets up the brilliance of that Kodak situation even more. They went from despair back to this high-pressure stand and still had the composure to use that timeout for a complex strategic switch.
It speaks to a deep, deep resilience. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this victory got the Broncos their 9th straight win, their longest streak in over a decade. But more to the point, this was their 6th game this season decided on the very last play.
And what's their record in those?
They improved to 4-2. They are hardened experts in handling chaos.
So what does this all mean for us? We saw the Commanders' strategic conviction, a coach who commits early to playing aggressive. We saw the importance of executing a rehearsed play.
And we saw the Broncos' powerful adaptation in that final moment. using a timeout not for rest, but to create specific, targeted defensive chaos.
The key takeaway for you, the listener, then, is how preparedness has to coexist with in-the-moment adaptation to succeed in these crucial high-stakes moments.
That's it. Quinn had the grand strategy, but Payton and Joseph had the tactical foresight to hit the pause button, assess the exact threat, that QB run, and then deploy a zero-blitz free rusher scheme to completely change the equation.
They actively manufactured the chaos they needed to win.
They did. They risked leaving their secondary exposed to get a guaranteed breakdown in protection. It was a trade-off that paid off with Bonitto's casted hand.
That targeted adjustment was the entire difference.
Absolutely. So we'll leave you with this final provocative thought, building on the brilliance of that defensive tweak. Given that the Broncos created a high-risk scheme specifically designed to generate a free rusher that led to that decisive play, when you're facing your own final decisive moment, when is it wiser to stick rigidly to a well-rehearsed plan, and when must you use a calculated pause to create a complex, risky, but highly targeted adjustment?
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll catch you next time.